Hello, hello, hello. All right, welcome to this edition of Unwrapped. I'm Sari Kimbell. I am the creator of Food Business Success. And today we are talking about getting onto grocery store shelves. I just released a podcast a couple weeks ago with Tanya Ellis. She is a store director for Lucky's Market here in Colorado, where I'm based. But she gives you a great overview of like a perspective of a grocery store and some things to keep in mind. And so I wanted to just expand on that a little bit more, give you some more insight, some more like concrete hows, right? That's what we do here on Unwrapped is really help you to understand and know what to do next and explain some of these crazy things in the food industry. So if you have a packaged food business, you are in the right place. And if you want to get on grocery store or gift store or any kind of physical brick and mortar store, this is definitely the episode for you. All right. So when we talk about getting on a grocery store shelf, I have a lot of people that come to me and say, I just want to be in Costco or I want to be in Whole Foods or I want to be, in large chain grocery stores. And the reality is that is very rare that you are going to launch immediately into a store like that. Typically the path is is going to be we're going to like work your circles. So think about where you live, where your community is, and we're going to start there and then we're going to keep growing it out. We're going to keep expanding, and because what we really need to do is prove the concept, right? We need to prove that it is viable, that it is going to work, because a grocery store, any kind of store, is, if you think about their shelves, those shelves are real estate. They have it's limited real estate, right? There's a limited amount of shelving and they need to put products on there that give them a return on investment, that have good movement, that are creating sales and getting in people's baskets. And so when you are fresh and new and have this brand new product out of the gate, you're an unknown, right? Why would they pull a barbecue sauce that's selling well and put your barbecue sauce on the shelf? And sometimes people do get really lucky that they know people. A lot of times they know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody that gets them a meeting. And sometimes it's just like that perfect product that's been missing in the market, that's like keto or paleo or something that's like just, it happens to be just like right on trend, right? Like just filling that void. And so a buyer is like really looking for that. And honestly, when you're just starting out, I don't even necessarily want you to get onto a large national retailer shelf, because you are almost, it's like you're going to be, sprinting before you even know how to walk. And there's so much to learn before you can get to that spot. So when I was at Whole Foods Market for 4.5 years, I unfortunately saw a lot of people who did get on store shelves rather quickly, and then they didn't plan well. They didn't understand what the expectations were. They couldn't they couldn't fulfill product, right? And that's a huge problem. Or they got on the shelf and then they couldn't move product. So I want you to work up to this. So think about, where can you start locally and then start working your way out, because you're going to have a distribution issue as well. It's always this like catch 22 of like, well, how do I grow and get into more stores if I can't, if I'm not in distribution and I have people delivering the product for me, and a distributor's like, I need to have like a guarantee of a certain number of accounts or certain sales per year, right? So that can be really challenging. So what you want to be doing is working those circles of influence, and you want to be building up what's called a data story. I have a great interview with Doug Helbig under resources on my website, foodbizsuccess.com. And we talk about growing a brand to $1 million, and don't get scared by that number. But basically, we talk a lot about data story and having a brand story, but creating a data story where okay, I'm at a farmer's market and I can at least show that I sell X number of units every week and I have a loyal fan base and people keep coming back and I have this many followers and XYZ, right? That's your data. And then you can take that and start using that as like validation to a buyer at a small store of like why this will do well, why they should risk giving you shelf space, right? And then you really want to go deep with that one partner and work on getting a couple of other partners and go deep in that relationship. Really help sell the product. You need product to move. Tanya had a great quote that like as a grocery store, she's like, "We're not a food museum." Right? Like we're not here to just look at pretty food. Like food needs to come off the shelf and get into people's baskets. And so if you don't do that, you will quickly find yourself discontinued, right? You see those at the grocery store, it's because their product's not moving. And they like a grocery store is very data driven. They are looking at movement, their velocity. And so if your product doesn't move, in 3 months to 6 months, you're off the shelf. So we don't want to do all this work to get on the shelf and then spread ourselves so thin that we can't like really help those first couple of stores to get that traction going and then really have a strong data story. So that's kind of just like the high level philosophy as far as like tactics and strategy. So you need something called a sell sheet. And so you're going to need to have this created. They should be visually attractive. So you need to work. I would highly recommend working with a designer. I help people with sell sheets all the time. I have great designers that can do them. But work with somebody because they need to be pretty. They're visual pieces, right? And so usually what we look at now, so they can be different shapes and sizes, right? But typically the front is going to thanks, Frank. Hey Frank. And I have a question. I will come back to that. Thank you. So, a sell sheet should be pretty and marketing focused on one side, and it's going to like tell more about the brand. Usually, oftentimes, especially when you're small, you'll put a photo of yourself on there. Like, we want to talk about what is distinctly unique, what's defensively unique about your brand, and put it on that sell sheet. And it's great when it has product, especially if it's like finished product, right? To kind of show what it looks like. You also want to call out like it's gluten free or it's locally sourced or those kind of things, right? Like what makes your non GMO. Um, I love Honey Mamas. They have amazing marketing, and they were at the especially food trade show, fancy food, and I was a frequent visitor there. But I just think that like this is really clean and easy to read, but really beautiful. Um, and then the back is going to be the details, right? All of the nitty gritty. And this is geared towards a buyer. So your customer in this case is the grocery store buyer. So you want to be tailoring your message to them. Like give them some data on um how frequently, like if you have a plant-based food, like give them some stats on plant food trends and how many people are doing plant food based diets, right? You want to show that there is a market for your product and that your product fits right into that market and that it's a good bet for them to take on your product. And then the back, you're going to have things like your UPC code, your ingredients, a photo of the actual container, the box. You're going to have now some they can get really elaborate, and when you're just starting out, you really don't need unit dimensions or pallet dimensions, case weights, and things like that. But you do need to tell them what the unit size is for each product, what the MSRP is, right? The suggested retail price, what, how many units come into a case. And then if you do have like a shelf life, I would put shelf life on there. And then you want to have contact information. How do they reach you, right? What's the phone number? What's the email? A lot of times for small when you're just starting out, we will put on there like, um, please allow 5 business days for delivery, or please give us X number of days notice. And then you may have a minimum for delivery. Like, do you charge delivery if it's under, $75? How much is that? Do you have areas that are free delivery? You really want to give the buyer everything that they need to know right here on this. Now, sometimes when you're small, I generally recommend just combining it and having your price, the case price on there. A little tricky thing that you want to do. It's not a trick, but it's like it's common practice. But what you want to do is put the case price. So you're going to have like unit is 2-ounce container, and then there's 6 in a case, and then you're going to put the case price. So that total price of whatever the wholesale rate is. And I have a really great module inside Food Business Success where I walk you through and give you examples and like walk you through each piece of it. This one here has like nutrition facts on it as well, the UPCs, all of that. But you can see they have photos at the top, some info here at the bottom, some different kind of marketing stuff. So if you're just super early, I know one question I get is like, do I need UPC codes? No, it depends on the store though. So if you're going to a small farmer's or like a co-op or some gift shop or something that they don't need to scan things, then no, you don't need a UPC. So you can get started. And then but if you're going to like a medium to large retailer, yes, you absolutely need UPCs, and be very careful. I think that I have some YouTube videos about buying UPCs. I talk about it a lot and give you step-by-step directions inside Food Business Success, but you want to be sure you only get those from GS1. Don't buy bargain UPC codes. Let's see, anything else I want to cover on that? So then you're going to take your sell sheet. You're going to take a sample of your product. And people ask me, well, if I have a lot of different products, like how many flavors, all of that, how many should I bring? So I recommend 3 products, no more than 4, ideally. I know Frank's on here. He's got a lot of products. We kid, right, Frank? We're friends. But you want to be careful that you don't overwhelm your buyer and ultimately the end consumer with too many decisions. So I recommend 3 to start with, 3 to 5. I would not go more than 5. You're going to really overwhelm people. But you want to take those samples in. Now, sometimes people ask me like, well, do I have to take them full-size samples or can they be smaller samples? I would definitely recommend taking at least one full-size sample because they need to see it, right? What does it actually look like? What does your packaging look like? But if you have a lot of flavors, you could do smaller samples beyond that. And then you're going to go in. What you want to do is try to arrange a meeting ahead of time, call the store, find out who the buyer is, see if you can get their email, find out what their schedule is, email them ahead of time. I'm actually working with somebody here locally who just called me today. Actually, that's perfect timing. Actually, she said, can I just hire you to come around with me for a couple of stores and help me learn how to do this? And it's so funny because she's like a salesperson. Like she does title work, like real estate mortgages. She's like, I can sell mortgages all day long, but I am terrified of going in and talking to a buyer. And what if I mess it up? Listen, you're going to mess it up a little bit. It's okay. But having a sell sheet is going to really help you because all the information will be on here. So it doesn't all have to be in here in your brain, right? So you can go in, just try to make a meeting ahead of time. If you do a pop-in, which I don't recommend, although it kind of depends on where you live and the type of store. If you do a pop-in, you definitely want to steer clear of like early morning because that's when buyers are placing their orders and they have deadlines. And then you want to steer clear of lunch hour because that's a time when the store is a lot busier, and steer clear of dinner hour. So kind of that like 10 to 11:30 and then like after lunch, like 1:30 before dinner rush. So, but the trick is that a lot of buyers do leave because I used to be a buyer. I know the schedule well, that we would come in at like 6 a.m. because and sometimes earlier, 5:30, because we have deadlines to get in by like 8 a.m., 9 a.m. Um, and then we're leaving, at 1:30 to 2:30, something like that. So that's why it's a little bit tricky, and why it's a really good idea to make an appointment ahead of time. That way they expect you, they've made time in their day. When you catch them off guard, you may not get the best version of themselves, especially if they are in the middle of meeting a deadline, or you might not get their attention at all. Um, and then you wanna just keep it short, clear to the point. I'm all I think there's, like, different people have different ideas on this, but, some people are like, "Do not expect a buyer to open up your product and try it. Don't," maybe they will, maybe they won't, and of course, it depends on the product. But I'm a big fan, I've worked with some clients who have done this with a lot of success, that, like, you should go ahead and open up the product for them, be like, "Hey, here, try it," and that's gonna be your level of comfortability. And if you have, like Frank has a honey, maybe, have, like, some wooden spoons in your bag. I always recommend getting just some plain white bags, put one of your stickers on it that has your brand, put your product in there, because a buyer may have their hands full, and so you wanna be able to give them this bag with the sell sheet and the sample and everything like that, instead of, like, having to try to carry a whole bunch of individual things. But go ahead and, like, "Hey, let's try it together." Grab the spoon and be like, "Here." Now they may say no, of course, and so you have to be willing to, like, be a little uncomfortable, but, I'm a fan of that. I think if you can get it in people's mouths, I mean, buyers are busy, right? And the last thing you want is them to just go back and check it in their office and forget about it. And then you're gonna want to follow up with them. They're probably not gonna give you a yes right on the spot. It does happen sometimes, but probably not. And so, you wanna have their email, and then I recommend doing a quick follow-up, right, that day or the next day, saying, "It was great to meet you," and then email them the sell sheet as well. So have an email version of it. Send them that, say how nice to meet them. Ask them some personal-ish questions, right? So you have something interesting to say. Hope you had or, I don't know, like, hope your son's baseball game went great, stuff like that, that you can connect with people. This is just about relationships, right? Just building relationships. But the podcast episode with Rachel Walker from last fall is really great. She does an amazing job with her kombucha and building up relationships with people. Keep a CRM or spreadsheet, some kind of tool that you can plug in information of who you spoke to, when you spoke to them, some details from the conversation, and then, like, your follow-up dates. So I recommend following up after that initial follow up every 10 days, but try to include something new, some new piece of information. Like, we just got into this new store and it's doing really great, or we just launched a new flavor, or we got written up in, XYZ publication, or, something like that. Like, can you offer them some little nugget of value that they're like, "Oh, that's interesting," right? That you're showing the viability of the brand. And then you just keep following up and keep following up until you get a clear no. So do not give up. Buyers are super busy. We're heading into, like, a good time with summer, but really, you have until about October 1st before you're going to be cut off, but with the holidays. So now is definitely the time to get out there, to start hitting the streets, making email, sending emails, calling the stores, getting those appointments lined up. Start in your small area first. All right, so I have some comments, questions in here. Do you know if retail stores bargains against the price that I set for them? No, typically they're not going to bargain with you. If you do get pushback, I always say, how can you make this an absolute no-brainer? And for that first couple stores, like, we had Yvonne's one of our members inside Food Business Success. And I remember she came on a group call and she was just like, oh, I cannot get that first account. Like everybody wants to know who else I am working with. And I just cannot seem to get anybody to say yes. And she had had a couple in a row and was feeling really discouraged. And I just said, you got to stay with it. You got to stick to it. But how can you make it a no brainer? Because again, they're taking a big risk with you. So in her case, I said, with her tea, I said, you know, um, tell them that maybe what you do is that the first case is, I mean, worst case scenario, you can do like on consignment. Like sometimes you just got to do whatever you can to get in that first store. So tell them you'll do it on consignment. Like the first case is free, which in a traditional grocery store, you're going to have to do a free fill anyway. So, sometimes you just give away that first case for free, right? Make your case sizes small. Do like 6 in a case. Don't do 12. I do not recommend doing 12. Do not do 24 by any means. You might have to get special boxes, but do 6 in a case, and that way, give them the first case free, right? Like, that's a real no-brainer. You could do, like, on consignment, right? When it sells, then I will invoice you, or the first case, you get 50% off, or your first order or something like that, or you get 10% off, whatever. That's how I would work it. But you always want to have your fixed price because hopefully you have an accurate cost of goods sold. You know your pricing, you know your margins. If you don't, you need to get the pricing for profitability workshop and get my amazing, amazing tool in there. But you need, hopefully you're priced where you're not gouging people, but you are covering your costs and you have a path to profitability. So don't bargain on price, just bargain on that first case to get in the door, get on the shelf, and then let them know you're going to do everything to help support it. So that means putting things on promotion, like, hey, I'll give you the first case for free and let's also put it on sale. Right? It's normally MSRP is $9.99. Let's put it on sale for $7.99. I'm going to come in and do demos. I'm going to do samples. Like, what are all the things that you're going to do to help get that product off the shelf and get that velocity going? It's starting the flywheel that's the hardest part. And once you get those first couple stores and get people aware of the product, you need to go talk to friends and family literally and be like, hey, I just got on the shelves of this. This is why it's another great thing to be in your local community. Hey, I just got on the shelves at this place. Can you guys go in and buy it? Right? Like literally, because a grocery store, the sooner you can get that first case reorder, the better, right? Because a grocery store buyer is like, oh, like they don't know it's your friends and family. And then how can you keep it going? Because sometimes we need a little more time, right? Use your social media, use your networks. Um, Use personal email, use LinkedIn, use all of those tools, use demos, use sale, right? You got to drive traffic. You got to do everything you can to really support those first few stores. And then keep those going and then slowly start adding more stores, making sure you're not going too fast where you can't keep up with production. You can't keep up with distribution. You can't keep up with like really supporting those stores, right? You don't want to let those first couple drop after you get a few more stores. Like, how can you keep supporting them? You are a partner in this, and a grocery store wants to know that they have good partners. And you guys got to go listen to it's on this YouTube channel, my interview with Tanya Ellis, or on all the podcast platforms. You got to go listen to that because she just offers a ton of wisdom. For sure. I mean, there's so many other things we could talk about around your packaging and how do you display product and all of that. But I think this gives you some good tools with the sell sheets. If you guys are interested in working with me more, this is exactly what we do in Food Business Success. So you can watch the sell sheet module and then you can post your sell sheet and we will look at it on a group call together. It's a phenomenal resource, and Frank's in it. He knows, he loves it. He's on all the calls, so you can come, most of them anyway. You can come meet him. But they're so awesome, and we dig into your profitability. We make sure your margins are solid. Like The problem is people wanna go into grocery way too soon, and their margins are not good, and I literally have worked with people where they when we actually do it correctly and we do their margins, that they are literally paying to be on the shelf every time they get on a store, right? They're like, "Oh my gosh, every time I sell a case, I'm actually paying them $2." Right? Um, yeah, you do need to have a plan to, how quickly can you turn around product? I don't know what your product is, so, some products, like, if you make a shelf stable sauce, you're gonna have a lot of it just hanging around. If it's bread that you need to bake every time, like, how are you going to, make sure you can fulfill orders? And that's where you wanna have, like, 5-day lead time or we need our orders by Tuesday at midnight, that kinda thing. The biggest pushback that you're gonna get with grocery stores or other stores of any kind is that it's a pain in the ass for them. They're gonna have to email you, text you, whatever you wanna do, every time they wanna place an order. It's much easier for them to just go to their distributor and, click some buttons and say, "Here's my order." But they can't get hyper local, some cool things. So again, you got to make a value proposition that your product is so different and so amazing and it's local and you're supporting this local producer and nobody else has this product and here's why it's so awesome and here's how I'm going to support you. You have to make it worth their while to email you directly or call you or whatever, right? Um, so you got to make it worthwhile for them. And that's always the trick, right? Think about when somebody asks you to do something outside of you have a routine, it's working fine. And then somebody's like, hey, can you do this totally different thing? Like, do you want my product? It's amazing. And you have to do all this extra work to do to have me on the shelf, right? So you want to make it as easy and no brainer as possible. Yeah, if you have stuffed chicken wings, my friend, you need to be USDA. So you're probably going to be working with a very large plant and you're going to have a lot in frozen. So you will have plenty of product to refill, but you're going to have big orders up front to be working out of a USDA plant. So that's a whole different topic. And definitely something I can help you inside food business success with. So I will leave it there, but I hope that was really helpful. Start small, really go deep with partnerships, make it a really simple, no brainer, yes. And have your beautiful sell sheet done. Get some help with that. I'm happy to help you if you reach out. Build a data story and call ahead. Like, be a good person, be nice, um, build a relationship. That's what it's all about. All right, you guys. Thanks, Frank. Appreciate you being here. All right, guys, have an amazing rest of your day. Bye.